Hello and welcome to Can I Be Phished, the podcast, video podcast from Click Armor. And today I have with me Ted Demopoulos. Welcome, Ted.
Thanks, Scott. It's a pleasure to be here.
It's great to have you because I've wanted to talk to you for over 10 years. We've actually exchanged information or ideas probably since about 2006, 2007 when I read a book that Ted published on podcasting. So it's kind of like if it wasn't for Ted, I wouldn't be here.
Well, I take that as an enormous compliment. Somehow I still think you'd be doing great things, including probably this.
Well, I don't know about that. But anyway, I'd love to have you here. I just want to let people know a little bit about your background and why I think it's so important to have you on the show here. So maybe you could give us a little bit of, the highlights of your career, what you're doing.
Sure. After grad school in 1986, I joined a small company that got bought by a Fortune 500 a few years later. So I had some small company and some very big company experience for about 5 years. 1990, I started working for myself. Since then, I've had startups off and on. I've always consulted either primarily or on the side. I'm not as technical as I used to be. I still do get my hands dirty. I still scan networks. I just had something that was actually canceled because of the pandemic right when it started, where I was going to be doing some network forensics in Toronto.
Oh, wow.
These days, I do a lot of strategic planning for security. I'm teaching people how to be consultants. Somehow people are like, I kind of like what you do. Can you show me how to do that? I do a lot of training on security. I teach a lot of boot camps for the SANS Institute.
Oh, okay.
And I'm always looking for the next exciting thing, but I never want to stop doing what I'm doing because I've always liked doing what I've been doing. Small company of one person, Demopoulos Associates. Occasionally I hire people to help me with things.
Yeah.
I like staying small and being nimble, and security has been my passion since like high school.
That's awesome. That's great. And so I hadn't really had a chance to chat too much with Ted until recently. You just published a book, did you not? Another book.
I've got one coming out. I published one about two years ago called InfoSec Rockstar.
Oh yeah.
On the non-technical things, the non-technical skills we need to be successful in security.
Mm-hmm.
And I always thought, that I'd become better and better, more effective, do better things by becoming more and more technical. Technical skills were all that mattered. Anything else was like not secondary, but tertiary.
Yeah.
Further out, somewhere around Neptune or Pluto in importance. And I've come to realize over the years that the non-technical professional skills, starting like communications, being able to get things done, just like planning and so forth, are equally important to the technical parts in being an effective security or any kind of a technical professional. And that was called InfoSec Rockstar. That's still selling well. It's on Amazon or Chapters and the physical bookstores. And coming up, I have the first draft done, is a book probably going to be called Successful InfoSec Consulting 101, How to Be a Consultant in Information Security.
Cool.
And the name keeps changing. The first draft is done. At first, it was going to be almost like everything you could possibly ever know. It's like in like 500 pages. I have too much written right now, so I'm scaling that back. And I'm hoping that's going to be out in first quarter.
That's great. That's great.
And
I was going to suggest the title, almost the same title as the podcasting book I read. Everything you want to know about security consulting, but we're afraid to ask. I think that was kind of the way you had that first book.
That's not a bad title.
Well, no credit needed, but that's great. Yeah. And it's a pleasure to have you on, Ted. As you may know, we've done a few of these episodes in the past. And generally, what I do is I invite a guest and we dissect, or what I call unboxing, a phishing email. So these are emails that are known to be, malicious, and generally they're usually sent to me, but sometimes I get people to send me samples. Best way to do that, if you're going to send me one, is to save the file itself rather than forwarding it to me. If you save it as an email message and then attach it separately to a file and email it to me, although Ted tried that and it didn't work. But hopefully it'll work when you give it a try. I have a special email address. It's called phishing@clickarmor.ca. So if you try and send it there, I should see it. But the point of this whole podcast series is to show people the process that I recommend using for analyzing a phishing message or a potential phishing message. And it's just a series of things that you can analyze for clues that could help you discard that message. So the process, before I get to the message itself, that I use, there's sort of 4 steps. One is what I call the gut feel garbage check, right? So it's just, you look at it and you say, yeah, I don't think I want to respond to this without having to look at anything. We're not going to spend too much time looking at those. You know how to do that. But once you've looked at it and said, I don't know, maybe this is real, then I think you have to look at 3 things. One is called sender sanity. So you look at the information that's available in the sender name and the sender email address, and we'll show you how we actually uncover that information. It can be different on different email clients, but in general, you want to dig as deep and look at as closely as you can at the sender information. And if you can't disregard the message from looking at that, then we have what I call link elusiveness, right? A lot of links that are put into messages can be pretty tricky. And there are some things that we should be looking for to see if they're legitimate or not. And then body believability is the last one. So you look at it and say, this is something that looks credible or plausible, or it doesn't. So once you've gone through that process, you might have been able to disregard the message. And if you can't disregard it at that point and you work in an office environment, probably best to consult with your IT service desk or somebody that you trust to get some help on it if you really want to know whether it's safe or not. But that's the process. So what I'm going to do now, Ted, is do a little bit of a screen share and see if I can get this. There we are. Can you see my email?
I can see your email.
There we are. Okay. So this email, usually I come up with a catchy name for them. I haven't thought about this one yet, so we'll put it in the title when we, if you have any ideas, Ted. But I saw this one last week. It was sent to me, and I thought it was interesting because it was, for some reason, even though it's very simple, it was almost compelling, right? And so there are a few things. Obviously, the gut feel garbage check, to me, it's like if there's anything clearly wrong looking at it, I'm going to throw it out. In this case, it's not too bad. Any thoughts initially when you look at it?
No, but the first thing that jumps into my mind is what account, right?
Yeah.
What account is this?
Yeah. So,
And then, and secondary, almost parallel is, I don't want anything to expire, right? I don't want
that's
it to
it. Yeah,
expire. It's like that might cause me trouble if something expires.
exactly right.
I
So yeah,
accidentally didn't pay my car insurance 1 month because it turns out the mail was delayed with COVID and my car insurance got canceled. That was just a nuisance, and that's just
yeah,
what jumps into my mind.
it's terrible. Yeah, and so yeah, one of those things, even though we don't have to always do them in the same order, but this is sort of the body believability part of it, right? After you've sort of looked at the general look and feel, but first thing grabs your eye is this expiring on October 10th, and so you think, oh, geez, yeah, this is something that we have to watch out for. Any kind of a phishing email, they're trying to get you to click on something or take an action, and they want you to do it urgently, right? So they want you to have some reason that you're going to take action. And in this case, it's going to expire. So that's one of the elements of the body believability that I would say is driving us to think, you know what, if they're trying to get you to do something, in the short term, really quickly, then you got to take a closer look. So definitely, that's something that we're going to look at. I'll come back to the body believability, but I'm going to just make sure I don't forget something. So I'm going to start with the sender information, sender sanity. So messages from email team. Well, chances of me having a trusted uh, part of my organization and my employer that sends out stuff saying it's from the email team, that might not happen all the time, right? But
No,
maybe
yeah.
it might happen. The number one thing that I always want people to recognize is there is no harm in clicking on the sender name in an email, right? Definitely you don't want to click on links or attachments if you're not sure. But if you are actually clicking on a sender email, sometimes that's the only way to find out where the message came from. So you have to be able to either hover or click on that email sender. And in this case, it's saying fmasher@live.com. So we know that's a Microsoft
A
address, right?
generic free
Free email.
Microsoft
Yeah.
account.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
somebody just created a free email account, and you can call it whatever you want when you make up your name. Your name is email team. So that's what they did. So, that's certainly a suspicious part of the equation there on the sender side. Subject is email administration. That's fine. It's to confirm@outlook.com. So that's something kind of weird. Like, why isn't it sent to me
Yeah, that
personally?
is.
Um, and then the greeting, typically, I used to tell people, if a message doesn't address you personally, then it's suspicious. That's not always the case anymore. There are a lot of services out there that don't actually put your name in the greeting.
I'm seeing more and more of those.
Yeah, yeah. But dear user, that is a little suspicious, right? If they want to address me, they should be calling me by my name. And then, yeah, as Ted pointed out, the expiry notice is something that jumps out at you. And again, they put it in red, so it's trying to get your attention. Um, if you want to continue using this account, upgrade to our services. Ignore this message. Ignoring this message will cause the account to be closed with no period on it. So there's, not to say that there isn't bad grammar sometimes, but usually, professional services organizations are pretty good at their grammar, right?
Yeah, they're usually a little better, although we do see some things where I sent out some bulk email occasionally where I have a typo in it as well, but it's certainly something to consider. Yes.
Yep, yep. So, and what else can we see here? Note this upgrade is required immediately. Once again, it's the time pressure after receiving this message. Thank you, security account team. Right? And again, it's sort of a generic team. Most organizations that I consult with, I say if you're wanting to improve awareness and reduce the vulnerability of your team, you should have a standardized format for messages that your management sends out, to all staff. And it should always be from a person, right? The head of HR, whatever her name is or his name is. So that way, when you get this kind of a message that's just naming a generic team, that people will pick up on it, going, yeah, the HR team or the HR manager never sends out messages that are signed that way, right?
Also, it's from email team, but it's signed security account team.
Yeah,
And
that's
all that doesn't immediately jump out to me, there's a lack of parallelism there.
yeah, yeah. So now we'll get to the juicy part, the link elusiveness. What do they actually put in the link here that they want you to click on? So it's a little
Oh,
small.
that's not good.
output.jsbin.com/MIJOFAG. So yeah, I don't think that's an account upgrade from any kind of email service I've ever seen.
First of all, in any organization you're in, that's not going to be the organization's domain name. It's certainly not Microsoft or some known provider of
Yeah.
email or other software as a service.
Yep. Yep.
It's just, and it almost looks like it might be a randomly generated link name at the end. I'm not sure.
Yep. Yep. but jsbin.com. Don't think I've ever seen that as a domain, primary domain, but
I, I don't
but
even
you're
like the
right.
name.
Yeah, I mean, you should really be looking for either your own organization's domain or a service provider that you know and trust. So maybe your organization uses a managed service provider if it's a small business. You should know what that organization's name is, and they most likely, in many cases, are using Office 365, or now called Microsoft 365, right? So it would probably be a Microsoft or a Google domain, or something like that, right? That would show up here if you were really going to be taken to a legitimate email support site.
Now, I sometimes look at emails from a different perspective. I look at them from a marketing perspective. So although the sender in this case is somebody bad, I mean they're trying to get you to do something bad, they're essentially marketing,
Yeah.
right? And we know that if you don't look at an email and deal with it soon, you might never get back to it. It's like I'm going car shopping with my mother this week. And the salesman knows if you walk out the door, no matter what your intention, you swear you're going to come back tomorrow and buy the car. And they know you're probably not coming back.
Right.
If you
Right.
look at the email, you're most likely to take action
Yeah.
if
Yeah.
you take it immediately. It's the same with direct mail, with postal mail as well. I mean, the same
Yeah.
concepts apply.
Yeah.
You're looking at it now, you might not look at it again.
Yeah.
And if you look at it again, you may be thinking, should I do this or not as well?
Yeah. Yeah. For sure. There's I when I teach small sessions like lunch and learns, I often go into the number of different kinds of emotions that attackers will try to leverage, right? And I usually list like a dozen,
Mhm.
fear, uh, generosity, time, laziness, all these things. Any emotion you can think of, an attacker can try to exploit, right? And they just need to build the email message around whatever it is they're trying to get you to do. And so, this message was probably targeted at a whole bunch of people who are probably email users, maybe not as technical, because they probably, if they were technical, they would probably know some of these things. And it's hard to guess sometimes why an attacker chose to to send a particular message to you. Like, why did he think I would fall for this, right?
Right. But looking at it from the marketing perspective, they're probably looking at what percentage of people take the action they want.
Mm-hmm.
When I send email to the people on my email list, if I know they're going to be the most excited people in the world, but if I get 50% to open the email, never mind click, that's a lot.
Yeah.
Now, with something like this, success to them, however they measure it, might be 1% of people clicking or 0.1% clicking. That might be massive success to them, right? They
Yep.
obviously don't need everyone to open it,
Yep.
but they need some people to open it and then click on the link. And a lot fewer are going to click on the link than open it.
Yeah, I've also heard there's a philosophy that some attackers might use, and that is, if you make the message so dumb that people are not going to get wasting their time, right? So, in terms of responding and trying to uh, argue with them about stuff, there are some points of view that say, if we make the message so dumb that we know most people aren't going to click on it, but some will for sure. It's an interesting philosophy around it, but that's some of the reasons why you think, why would they even bother sending this message? And it's almost to screen out the people that are too smart to even
Now,
bother.
I wonder, and I've never been a criminal or knowingly worked with them, but I wonder if they're doing some sort of split testing with different headlines, different body copies, or maybe going to, and this is going to be a little geeky on the marketing side,
Yeah,
full blown, was it Tagamuchi testing, where they have all these different variables they're testing for click through
yeah,
rates. And
yeah, for sure.
and
They
I
call it growth hacking.
imagine sophisticated criminal enterprises are doing that, just like sophisticated organizations with very sophisticated marketing departments.
I think you're right. It could well be that kind of a test, right? I'm sure they will try to optimize, the words or the colors or whatever it is,
Hmm.
just like everybody does on the tech websites these days.
Yeah, a friend of mine is he's in marketing and he does some marketing security. He's worked for the RSA conference, among others. Remember him calling me up and saying, "Who are these Bob and Alice people?" It's like, can you explain this to me? And I've learned from him and from experience since then that it's always shocking what people are going to take action on, what they're going to click on, what they're going to open. And I went through an exercise recently. It's actually a webinar with this business program that I'm a member of, and they showed us emails, both of which were sent to different groups of people, right at random, and you were supposed to guess which one people took the most action on, meaning opening it and clicking.
Oh, neat.
And you couldn't guess. Some were obviously better than the others. It's like, this one's obviously better.
Yeah.
It's like, no,
Really? Wow. That's
no.
cool.
And it was just always a surprise. And also, I think I'm smart sometimes. I'm not going to click on that. But I think we can all be fished.
Yeah. Have
And
you
I
ever
like to
been
give you,
fished?
oh, yeah.
If you're like most managers, you're increasingly concerned about employees being targeted with phishing and social engineering attacks that can be very costly. You may have noticed that some static security awareness training programs or phishing assessments just aren't very effective at changing employee behavior. What employees need is a more dynamic and engaging experience that uses proven techniques for accelerating knowledge retention. ClickArmor delivers a better way to engage employees, one that allows them to actually develop and practice real defensive skills in a safe and fun environment. Our gamified phishing and social engineering awareness modules use dynamic learning challenges and simulations to efficiently teach basic skills like analyzing sender information, links, and body content, or learning how to avoid giving information or access to the wrong person. Employees can practice decision-making for risky scenarios in a safe environment and then get immediate feedback and earn points as they compete against their peers. ClickArmor also provides you, the manager, with risk data you've never had before in the form of an employee cyber vulnerability profile. Our flexible, dynamic platform allows for tailoring of any content to your terminology and environment, with monthly challenges available to maintain program momentum. You can try ClickArmor's gamified phishing, social engineering, and working from home modules as a user at no cost. You can also have a free trial organization of your own to see what administrators can do to manage users and content and generate reports. So get started now and learn how you can get immediate results by visiting www.clickarmor.ca/trial.
Oh, I've clicked on things I shouldn't have. Maybe worse. Sometimes I'll think something is a phishing email. I might even be sure, and I will be wrong. So we're going back maybe a year and a half, 2 years ago. I get an email from PayPal. Now, I use PayPal. I don't use it a lot. I probably use it a little more than most people. Occasionally, I'll actually get paid via PayPal. I was
Sure.
doing a keynote for the Atlantic Security Conference, for example, in Halifax. Phenomenal conference. They sent me money via PayPal,
Yep.
right? So PayPal security is a little more important to me maybe than most people, not just because I'm a security professional, but I might have a small, more than a couple $100 there.
Yeah.
This was obviously a phishing email. It was just obvious.
Yeah.
Right? My mother maybe could have told you. So I sent it to, is it abuse@paypal.com, I think. They almost immediately responded. It was a real
It's
email.
real.
It wasn't, I was sure it was a phishing email. So apparently I can't tell either way, not with 100% certainty.
Yeah. Yeah. It's true. And it's a good time to bring up Chris Hadnaghy. I'm sure you've probably heard of, right? Socialengineer.org. Uh,
Yes.
we've had Chris on once or twice, I think, on our shared security podcast, but he's a great guy. I love his initiative, the Innocent Lives Foundation, where he uses hacker skills to track down pedophiles and people that abuse children. So great cause. But he was interviewed on Darknet Diaries not too long ago. The other is a podcast that does some great stories. And they asked him, "Have you ever been phished?" And he goes, "Yeah." Like of all the people in the world you think would never get phished, Chris did.
Right.
And he explained how. He said he had been getting ready for a trade show, packing up all his stuff, was in a bit of a hurry, and he ordered some stuff from Amazon for prizes and stuff. And he got an email from Amazon saying that his order didn't go through, and he just clicked on it. And when he went to a landing page that looked exactly like the Amazon page, but he said the only thing that tipped him off was that he never, either never or always, has his email address saved, and in the login page, when it asked him to log in, and it didn't look exactly the way it did that he was expecting it. And he goes, "Man, that was a good fish," because it got him right to the page, and he almost fell for it. So anybody can be phished, like you said.
Anybody can be phished. And one quick story. I can't mention the name without permission, but CEO of a big security company got phished. What actually happened? Now, this was an internal phishing exercise that got him. But if you travel, you periodically decide, I'm never flying this airline again, or I'm never staying in this hotel chain again. And he got an email from Marriott, some frequent stay or whatever they call it these days. I can't remember what they called it back then. And he immediately clicked on opt out. And as soon as he clicked, he knew. It was like, I probably shouldn't have done that. And to his credit, he publicized it within the company and beyond, saying, I think I'm smart. Obviously, I'm not as smart. If I can be phished, anyone can be phished.
Yeah, it's a great attitude to have, right? Show the leadership that way. That's awesome. Good stuff. Any other phishing stories before we wrap up, Ted?
Oh, my mother-in-law had a phishing email that actually followed up by a voice call. And the email was allegedly from one of her grandchildren, my niece, that she had already made her one phone call and couldn't make another one. She'd been arrested. She was driving slightly intoxicated, just barely over the limit, and had an accident and was in Mexico or the Honduras, and she couldn't get out unless they immediately Western Union money. Yeah. And could she please call this my number? It's like, I'm in trouble, Grandma. And she almost fell for it. Even though the person on the other end didn't sound that much, I'm going to think, like her granddaughter. It was a young woman, and she was like panicked. So in this case, it was a phishing email where the call to action they had was make this phone call.
Yeah, interesting.
And the only reason it didn't work is she had no idea how to Western Union money. So she asked my wife, who was like, Mom, this isn't real. And she had to convince her, had to actually call her granddaughter on the phone, my niece, Alex. And it's like, Alex answered the phone. She's like, no, I'm not in Mexico. I'm sitting here in North Carolina.
Yeah, I think that actually is a very common one that scammers use to target seniors, right? Who may either they don't necessarily have the closest relationship with their grandchildren, or they may be going a little senile, or some dementia, and they just don't recognize, and they say, yeah, I guess that's right, and they're often victimized that way. It also reminds me of something I've mentioned once or twice before in this podcast, but I love this YouTube channel called Kit Boga. I don't know if you've heard of it. It's a guy who actually, his mom or someone, I think, got scammed, and he seems to be independently wealthy because he spends all his time wasting the time of scammers and recording it on YouTube. And he's got wigs, and he does voice changing stuff, and he records everything as he's doing it. And he also has a side channel that he'll tell you what's happening and explain what the attackers are doing. It's an awesome example just to show people what the attackers are doing, and how he just tries to string them on and waste their time. It kind of gets them a little ticked off at times.
It's interesting. I'll have to check that out.
Awesome. Well, I guess at this point, Ted, just want to give you your last words and see if you have any information for people on how they might reach you if they're looking to become a security consultant or entrepreneur. Ted would be a great resource. How can they reach you?
Sure. Easiest place to find me is at demop.com, DEMOP.com. Just spell as much of my last name as you can, .com.
Awesome. That's great. And so any other last words of wisdom?
We can all be fooled. We can all be tricked. You know, some of us think we're smart. You know, I'm a security professional. I'm smart. We're not that smart. You know, we can all be fooled. And it might just be that you happen to be tired, you
Yeah.
know, or you're in a hurry, or like, I can't believe I fell for this. I wouldn't 99.9% of the time.
Yes, absolutely. Good point. It's like people who use the analogy of the human firewall, and I'm going, well, most firewalls, when you set their settings, they stay the same no matter what mood they're in or what's
Mhm.
going on in their life. But it's a good point. So people can be tricked. Anyway, I really thank you for joining us, Ted. It was awesome to have you on, and I hope we'll get a chance to do this again.
I hope so, Scott. This has been great. Thank you.
Thanks very much, and thanks everybody. We'll talk to you next time.